Oh, I see I've got my CPIX background on. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for joining today's session. I have my co-panelist, Mr. Ken Titmuss, all the way from South Africa. And I'm Imran Adam from Morgan International Dammam office. Inshallah, we will start in a couple of minutes. We will wait 1 or 2 minutes more so other participants can join, and then we'll start the event. So stay with us, grab a cup of your coffee, and we'll start soon. I believe, Ken, we can start now.
Right. Okay. Welcome, one and all, to becoming a certified supply chain professional, CSCP. Sorry, my voice is a little bit croaky, so I hope we'll last the hour. But let's get started. So, yeah, if we can get started, there we go. That's me. Ugh, no. Oh, you didn't change the slide. Okay. Oh, sure, but hold on. Let me. It's got a timer on the blooming thing. Oh no, it's staying. Okay, good. All right, so this is me, Ken Titmuss. You see, I'm a bit of a certification junkie. I think there's about 16 certifications there. So if this is your first certification, CSCP, there's plenty more to be done in the future. Let me just try and get my pointer here. There we go, CSCP. I did my CSCP in 2006 when Apex, as it was then, instead of ASCM, introduced it onto the market. And my advice to anybody is if Apex or ASCM introduce a new certification, always write the first exam because it's a little bit easier, I think. It tends to get harder as time goes on. So a little bit of advice there. So if you're just starting out, this is just the beginning. There's plenty of certifications that you can get into at the end of the day. Currently, I run my own business, Kent Outsourcing Services, and have done since the middle of the 1990s. And I'm an Apex International Channel partner, as well as SAPIX in South Africa. SAPIX is an international channel partner of Apex or ASCM now. I'm very involved in SAPIX in South Africa. I'm an authorized education partner. So I'm an Apex instructor for their certification programs. The other nice thing about Apex or ASCM is that once you become certified, you can then become an instructor. And they've got a fantastic instructor development program. And I've been running that in Africa, I don't know, for the last 20, 25 years, I think. So there's some really great courses that you can do and become an instructor. InChange is a company in the Netherlands, and They have what they call the Fresh Connection. It's a business simulation game, and they've got quite a lot of different configurations. And sometimes we've incorporated these simulations in with the Apex certifications. But you have 4 people in a team, and you've given a company in Holland or in the Netherlands. It's a fresh fruit company. And it's got a negative return on investment, and making tactical and strategic decisions, you have to turn it around to get a positive return on investment. And every year they have an international challenge, usually in November, and globally people come and do it. So something to really look at. I really enjoy that. Demand-Driven Institute is something that I'm very involved in now. And I'll talk more about demand-driven materials requirements planning. But certainly this is the future for supply chain management, in my opinion. And they have a number of certifications, and there are another 2 coming out this year. And in fact, the demand-driven distribution professional starts tomorrow night. VCare is another company that's got some nice little courses, which I run. I've been a supply chain consultant and educator for 30 years, probably more than 30 years now. Pre-COVID, well, I work out of Cape Town, but pre-COVID, I was flying around all over the world. I've been to Lebanon as well, and Jordan, and the Middle East, and America, and Australia, and Singapore, running courses and doing consulting and training other instructors as well. It's been absolutely fantastic. But since COVID, we've learned that we can do pretty well everything online. And so I haven't done too much traveling in the last year or so. Very active member of SAPEX here in South Africa. I'm an ex-board member of SAPEX, and I've been president twice for my sins. But I'm also a channel partner of business forecasting systems in America with their Forecast Pro software, and also demand-driven technologies with their DDMRP in Chewy Flow software. So I've been around quite a while, and I've done quite a lot. So I've got quite a bit of experience. So why is supply chain so important today? Rather than maybe we're going to go back to 1965 when the planning systems we're using today were developed. But today, supply chain is becoming more and more important. We've got earthquakes and volcanoes and floods and tsunamis and wildfires, pandemics, pestilence, COVID, conflict, wars, political and civil unrest. We have strikes. I mean, really, it's not a matter of if, it's when something's going to be happening. And we've got a lot of these happening already on the globe at the moment. And so there are just huge risks out there. And we need to be looking at those risks and understanding how we can mitigate those risks. And a portion of the CSCP covers some of that. But why is supply chain important? Well, I always tell my students, well, I ask my students, where does the supply chain start? And of course they say, well, with a supplier. Yeah, but where does the supplier get their stuff from? And if you think about it, every supply chain starts with the earth. Everything we have comes from the earth. We take fish out of the sea, apples off the tree, we pump oil out of the ground, we take ore out of the ground as well. Everything starts with the earth. And I call those people that take all that stuff out, they're gatherers. They're going out and gathering all these basic raw materials. And then they've got to go through primary processing, secondary processing, through some manufacturing processes, then through long distribution chains, perhaps, out into the retail outlet, and then finally to the consumer. When you think about it and all the risks we've got, it actually staggers me that we actually get anything to its destination at the end of the day. But supply chains are getting longer, they're getting more complex. And so we need to be looking at these issues in a lot of different way. We talk about VUCA, the VUCA world we're living in. It's extremely volatile. We never know when something is going to be happening and when something is going to pop up. It's very uncertain. We can never be sure about anything. It is becoming incredibly more complex than it was, say, back in 1965. And it's also ambiguous. When you look at something, somebody's going to tell you one thing, somebody may tell you something else. it's a very difficult to actually get the truth, maybe. So we're living in this very VUCA world, and there's nothing we can do about it. And believe me, it's going to get worse. Now, this next chart here is one that we use in the Demand-Driven Institute. But it looks at certain supply chain characteristics going back to 1965. Now, why do we pick 1965? Well, it's when materials requirements planning was codified by IBM for their clients. We knew how to do materials requirements planning in the 50s, but we didn't have the computers to do that. It was only in the middle of the 60s that we had computing power. And a chap called Dick Ling at IBM, he wrote the first materials requirements planning program. And I've had the pleasure of meeting Dick. He is really the grandfather of our whole planning today. He's a little bit older than I am. And I said, why did you write MLP like that? He said, well, I only had 12K of memory. And I think if any of you have ever done any programming, you realize that 12K is like absolutely nothing. So it was in 1965 that MLP was developed. It was popularized in the 70s when Joseph Orlicky wrote his book, Orlicky's MLP book. But if we look at, and I can attest to these, I know I don't look that old, but I actually started work in 1965. And I worked for a company in the UK, and we made tin cans. And we bought steel, and we made the cans, and we sold them locally to canning companies. There was very little global trade, okay? And the only technology we had was the telephone, the landline, and the post office, and that was it. And yet we're still using the same planning tools today that were developed in 1965 for a totally different world, this new normal we're living in, this VUCA world. But if you look down here, supply chains were not very complex. Product life cycles were long, not like cell phones today. By the time you bought one, there's another one on the shelf. And, they've got a very short life cycle. Customer tolerance time. Customers were prepared to wait longer. Now, I want to phone up the shop and have something delivered within an hour. Product complexity was very low. Customization of products was very low. Product variety was very low. I think in 65, Colgate and Crest had one toothpaste each. Today, I think Crest's got something like 42 different toothpastes. I mean, come on, do we really need 42 different types of toothpaste? But that's the variety that we've got out there. Very long lead time parts were very few in those days. Forecast accuracy was high because to forecast one toothpaste, pretty easy, but to forecast 43 toothpastes that I've got, much more difficult. And there were pressure for leaner inventories was lower in those days. I think I've worked for, I don't know, 200 or 300 companies over the years I've worked. Not once have I walked into a company and the boss has said to me, you know what, Ken, we have too little inventory. Can you help us get more? It's always the other way around. Gee, we've got so much inventory here. How do I manage it properly? Transactional friction was very high in the old days. Everything was done by post, telephone. So, you probably got orders in by post, product went out by post, invoices went out by post, checks came in by post. And that's how we developed this 30-day thing for accounting, because we needed time for that to happen. Today, transactional friction is very low. I can send something through the internet instantly. And my objective is not to pay my suppliers in 30 or 60 or 90 days. I pay them in 30 minutes. And I have the ability to do that anywhere I've got access onto the internet and my computer. So the world we're living in today is totally different to what it was in 1965 when we developed the first planning systems that we're using. So planning has changed enormously. Sorry, my voice is going now. Planning and supply chain systems have changed enormously over the last 100 years. Pre-1965, we were basically using reorder point systems and safety stock. And I guess many companies out there are still doing that. In 65, as I say, we developed MRP, Materials Requirements Planning. It was popularized in the 70s. I put my first system in the late 80s at a company here in Cape Town. We had a pretty successful implementation. Distribution requirements planning came along a little later. MRP2 came along. MRP really only plans and controls one of your key resources, that's materials. But what about the other three? When we got money, we got men, and we got machines, we need to plan all those things as well. And that's where MRP2 came in the 80s. In the 90s, we got enterprise resource planning. We got some other stuff added into the planning systems. And then, in my opinion, there was a major disaster came when we looked at advanced planning systems. The whole idea was to have one planning system right on top of the company, trying to optimize everything. Well, believe me, it is impossible to optimize everything. And I don't think anybody's using advanced planning systems today. Demand-driven MRP I've been involved in for the last 10 years, but it was actually developed at the beginning of this century, around 2000, 2005. And there were some very early adopters. But today it is being used by thousands of companies globally on 6 continents. And they're getting tremendous results from it, huge benefits. But there's a lot of people out there that have done some great things over the last 50, 60, 70 years. And we've had Ono at Toyota, and more recently, Womack and Jones of the Lean Institute. And these are all great tools. And if you don't know anything about them, you should, because I don't care what system you're using here, you should be looking at these methodologies that are put in place here with just-in-time and lean. And theory of constraints with Eli Goldratt. So we still use these things within the systems we use today. So you need to go out and find about that. Lots of other things like 5S and Kaizen and Kaizen Blitz. Fantastic tools, value stream mapping. You can't do anything until you've mapped your process. And once you've mapped your process, it'll show you where there's huge opportunities. Six Sigma, Edward Deming, who went to Japan after the Second World War and developed Six Sigma. It's all about taking variation out of your supply chain. And that's a key one as well. And then lots of things like SMED, single minute exchange of dies that were developed at Toyota. And that's just a smattering of them there. So there's a huge amount of things to learn when it comes to supply chain management. So is the CSCP right for you? I think supply chain is essential for any business. I don't care. You could be making the best product in the world, but if you can't get your raw materials into your operation and the product out into the distribution supply chain and in the hands of your customer, it's a waste of time. So I always say that you're only as good as your suppliers. If you've got lousy suppliers, you're going to be a lousy company. Okay, so make sure you deal with the best. And on the other side, make sure you've got lots of friends in the supply chain, because you've got to get that product into the hands of the consumer at the end of the day. And it's important for, as I say, for consumers to get their goods and services and for society to function. Supply chain is critically important. And I think this came to the fore over COVID, didn't it? I think pre-COVID, people didn't understand what supply chain management was about. COVID brought it to the top. CSCP is the playbook you need to understand and deliver these critical processes. The comprehensive program is going to cover what you need to know across the global supply chain, from suppliers to customers, and of course, back again. The reverse logistics is becoming more and more important, because we can't keep digging stuff out of the ground. It's going to run out. We need to start learning how to use things when we finish with them. So earning your CSCP designation shows that you have the skills to prepare and overcome disruptions, start managing those risks, and evaluate and implement modern supply chain technologies. The course itself has 8 key areas, and we call these diagnostic areas. And I'll go into that a little bit later on as the importance of these diagnostic areas. But the first one is supply chains, demand management, and forecasting. Then we're talking about global supply networks, sourcing products and services, internal operations and inventory, forward and those reverse logistics, and supply chain relationships. Very important subjects. Supplier and customer relationships. A lot of what we cover in the CSCP is about that, and it's absolutely critical. As I said, you need to be dealing with the best, not the cheapest, and you need to have a lot of friends that you can work with in the supply chain to get that flow of materials going down the supply chain and into your customers' hands. A little bit on supply chain risk. There's a guy called Greg Schlegel who works at Lehigh University in America. He's my go-to guy when it comes to risk, and he often comes to our SAPEX conference in South Africa and runs some great workshops, and he's got some really good stuff on risk. And then lastly, looking at optimization, sustainability, and technology. So those are the 8 key areas in the CSCP program. So APEX CSCP is regarded as the gold standard. If you go and have a look out there, people regard this as the key, the best supply chain professional certification that you can go for. And in today's competitive market, it demands mastery in the supply chain management. And it just staggers me how many companies I go to and I get introduced to a supply chain manager, and he's got nothing. No certification, no education, nothing, and he's running the supply chain. I can't understand it. As a supply chain professional, we know you recognize the importance of expanding your skills and knowledge. So CSCP is just the start, all right? As you can see, with all the certifications I've got, and I plan on getting another 2 this year. Take our short 5-question supply chain quiz to find out how much you know about end-to-end supply chain. So I'll talk a little bit about that. There's a little quiz you can take. So if you want to gain the following skills and responsibilities, then CSCP is right for you. We need to align your supply chain strategy. That's very important. I find in a lot of companies, people don't understand, the top management don't understand their supply chain strategy. And in each of the functions, they're not supporting that strategy. In fact, they're doing totally the opposite in some cases. And I know at least 2 companies here in Cape Town that have actually closed down because management didn't understand their supply chain strategy. We need to use data to link production and distribution and your purchasing processes. Help design a supply chain or optimize a supply chain to reduce waste. And that's where the lean comes in there, doing more with less. Optimize product design principles and techniques to get to market more efficiently. Improve forecasting and sales and operations planning. Demand-driven MRP doesn't drive your business on a forecast, which we know is wrong. It's kind of crazy. We've been doing that like for 50 years. We drive it on actual orders. However, we still want a good forecast and demand management process because we want to take that operating model and project it into the future to see where this company is going. So forecasting, still very important, but don't drive your day-to-day operations on a forecast. It's wrong. Plan inventory requirements throughout the supply chain. Develop collaborative relationships. There we are. We've got to collaborate in the supply chain. I just see too many adversarial relationships in the supply chain. People fighting with each other instead of working together to take out the waste and then share the benefits. Develop and implement best practices in standards, regulations, and sustainability. Now, APEX has also got the supply chain operations reference model. We talk a little bit about it in CSCP, but in there, it gives you, in fact, it's a no-brainer. If I was boss of a company, the first thing I'd do is implement the supply chain operations reference model. The supply chain It's been done for you. Why reinvent the wheel? It is there. It tells you what best practices to put in place. It tells you what performance metrics to put in place. It even tells you the type of people that you need at various points in the supply chain and what their qualifications should be as well. And then develop and manage supply chain improvement initiatives. And we should be doing that all the time, doing little Kaizen events, doing something better tomorrow than we did it today. These are some statistics from ASCM, and they say that 88% and nearly all supply chain professionals are happy with their career. Okay, I started off as production, engineering, and management, and sort of found my way into supply chain. And you talk to most supply chain people, and they didn't start out life wanting to be a supply chain manager. They sort of fell into it. And when you look at a company, probably the majority of the people working in that company are actually working in the supply chain, but they don't know it and they don't understand how it works. 24% is the average of supply chain salary, higher than the national average. So they reckon you can earn more money. And those with at least one Apex certification report 18% higher salaries. So they've done some statistics on this, and that's what's going to come out. So let's have a look at what do you get with the learning system, and it is a learning system. Okay, it's a personalized study experience, and you can go in and do a pre-test, and I'll talk about that later to start with, and you can see what your current knowledge of supply chain is, and you can design your study around that, or you can work your way logically through the material. You have an option. So it can prioritize content based on your knowledge gaps, allowing you to focus your study efforts to pass the exam. We talk about micro learning. We have very small content topics, maybe 15, 20 minutes. So you can learn in small little chunks. And we often get little bits of like a tea break or a lunchtime, or you just want to spend half an hour going into it. You can do these little chunks of learning, and there's flashcards and there's quizzes and there's lots of videos in the system as well. You also have a process tracker, so you can see where you are and what you've still got to do. And it's very convenient through a mobile first design. So you can access the material on any mobile device, computer, tablet, or your cell phone. And you also would have the material as a hard copy as well. The CSCP exam, we always say plan your date into the future. Have a target to go for. You know, in the old days, back in 2006, when I wrote CSCP, we had exams globally. Apex exams were written globally 3 times a year on a Saturday, 3 times a year. And so we used to focus our courses on finishing a few weeks before the exam date, so we give the students some time to do a bit of study. But I had to go up to the University of Johannesburg to write that CSCP exam on a particular Saturday. Later on, they changed the system so that you can actually do it online or a Pearson VUE site that might be near where you live. And you can write anytime. You decide what time. And then we found that people procrastinated. They didn't have that target. They do the course and they say, well, when I'm ready, I'll organize my exam. I would say do it the other way around. Once you've done the course, pick a date, a few weeks, a couple of months into the future, pick a date, make your exam date. Now you've got a target and you can plan your course and learning to that target date. You're going to get 150 questions. You've got 3.5 hours to answer them. However, about 20 of those questions will not be marked as part of your mark. They're test questions. Okay, and Apex does that. They put in test questions to see how people answer them. If everybody gets it wrong, they're too hard. If everybody gets it right, it's too easy. Okay, and they'll go and adjust the question. However, you don't know which 20 questions are the test questions. One thing that's very confusing for people is the scoring system. They have a scaled score system, and the scores run from 200 to 350, and you need to score at least 300 to pass, okay? And a lot of people come to me and say, I got 299 or I got 298. How does that work when I only had 120 questions? Well, there's a whole thing in the learning system that'll teach you how, which will show you how the scale score works. But I guarantee if you have got 298 or 299, you've failed one or two diagnostic areas. And it's very important. You need to understand, you need to pass all those diagnostic areas to pass the qualification. So today the exams are administered via computer-based testing, either at Pearson VUE testing sites, which are worldwide in most major centers, or you can do it online as well. And if you're still not convinced, you can go into Apex and the little websites down there, and for 30 days, you can test drive the CSCP first little module. So you can see what you get and how it works and all the rest of it. So this is what you get with the preview of the content of the program. Yeah, they give you module 1, section A. There's a lot of sections in module 1, but they give you access to module 1, which is understanding the 3 entities in the supply chain, the supplier, producer, customer, and understand the 4 flows, which is product cache, information, reverse flows, and the difference between vertical and lateral integration. So you can go through that material and you can look at the quizzes and all the things that are available to you. So it just gives you a feeling of what you're going to get if you get into this program. Now, one of the most important documents that you need to download and read very carefully is the exam content manual. And there are the 8 diagnostic areas. We looked at those before, all right? Now, the exam content manual, let me just say how Apex and other certifications actually work. There is a committee that puts the exam content manual together. They ask the question, what should people know if they want to be a supply chain professional? What's the subject matter that they should be able to master? And there are the 8 modules which they put down. All right. And in the exam content manual, those will be broken down into a lot more detail. So that is one group, one committee writes the exam content manual. Then you have another committee, which is the knowledge body, the actual course material committee. They say, all right, now we need to write material to cover these 8 modules. All right. So they sit down and they write all this material, and they create the manual for the system. Then there's a third committee that looks at the exam content manual and says, we need to test the people to see if they understand what is in the exam content manual. So they create the questions which are going to be tested on. Now, these 3 committees are totally separate. They never talk to each other. All right. And that's the way it works. All right. So this document is absolutely key. And you need to go through that with a fine-tooth comb. And I'll just show you a little bit of it just now. Okay. So I'm just going to quickly go through. I was going to do this live, but I hate doing things live because everything goes wrong. So I scanned a few or copied a few of the screens. So when you log on, this is what you see. You've got 3 key areas here: assess, study, practice. All right. First of all, you go into assess. And the very first thing you do is go down and take the pre-test. This will give you an indication of your current knowledge. So if you're getting 20% in the pre-test, you've got a lot of work to do. If you're getting 80% in the pre-test, then you've probably got a lot of knowledge under your belt already. Okay, so you go into the pre-test, and then it will give you the results of the pre-test as to where your knowledge is good or where your knowledge is perhaps not so good. Also on the assess side here, there's a little video here which you can go in. It gives you an idea of how to navigate around the tool and gives you some suggestions. If you're taking the course with a class of people, there's your class roster. And you can also go in here and you can put in a photograph and a little bit about yourself. So a lot of these courses are done online now, so you're not meeting people face to face. So you can start getting to know your colleagues or the learners on the course through that area there. So once you've done the assessment, then you get into the study section. This is obviously the biggest section. You've got your 8 diagnostic areas. And if you look here, you can see it says you can either work content order, so you work through the material based on the content, or your recommended order. So once you've done the pre-test, the system will then recommend that you maybe go and spend more time in this area and maybe less time in that area. So you can actually study that way around as well. If you're on a course, then we will probably go through the content order because everybody's going to be different. So when you click on the first one here, it's supply chain, demand management, and forecasting, there's a number of different topics. All right, this is the very first one, introduction to supply chain. Now, I know you've got the hard copy of the material, but it's also online here as well. And there's 2 little topics in this first section here. One is supply chain models, and the other is supply chain maturity and complexity. It tells you over here roughly how long they're going to take. So you've got about a 13-minute read for the first section, and a 23-minute read in the second section there. So these are these small little bites that you can take of the material. Okay. And once you've done the material, you can then write the quiz, and we have flashcards. All right, so you can go into the supply chain models and you can read. And once you've finished, you can hit completed topic, so that when you go and have a look at your progress, you can see what you've done and what you haven't done. And then you can go into the quiz. All right, now these quizzes can be done a number of times. And what I suggest is that you go and do the quiz and you keep doing it until you get 80% at least. Okay, you'll get some different questions and they'll be in different orders, but just keep doing the quiz until you get 80%. Now, the nice thing is that if you go into the quiz and you select the wrong answer, this one, in fact, is the right answer here, but I click this one and it tells you, no, that's the incorrect answer. This is the correct answer, but it also gives you the rationale as to why the correct answer is the correct answer. So that's very nice as well. It tells you why you were wrong. We also have flip cards, okay? And it'll give you a definition. People with a vested interest in the company, including managers, employees, stockholders, customers, and suppliers. And you can think, who is that? Well, I think it's stakeholders. So you can flip the card and, yep, I was right. It's the stakeholders. I'm going to get to this later, but I reckon 50% of passing the exam is understanding the terms and definitions. So spend a lot of time on those. Right, so once you've done all the study, and of course that goes through all 8 diagnostic areas and all the different modules, which will take you quite a while, you can then go and do a practice exam, okay? And again, you can do this exam again and again and again. You get slightly different questions and they come in different orders. But once you've done the practice exam and you've got 80%, minimum 80, you can print yourself a congratulatory letter. Now, that is not your CSCP, but it just says you've passed the online system. But if you want your CSCP, you're going to have to go and write the exam. Final preparations. I've got a colleague here in South Africa, Liesl Smith. Many years ago, we put a little 3-hour session together for students, Apex students, secrets for passing Apex exams. Okay, she's now recorded a lot of this stuff and added to it. So there's some really great little videos here of Liesl telling you how to finally prepare study strategies, how to answer multiple choice questions, etc. And then over here, you can sit the exam. Okay, well, it tells you how to go and register the exam, but Morgan will help you out on that score. There's also a glossary. So if you're not sure of a term like MPS, for example, you can type it in there and it gives you the definition of the master production schedule. We also have lots of other, there's your learning system. This is the progress. So you can see how well you've done in all the quizzes. I haven't done anything here at this moment in time, but you'll see there's a little red line there. That's 80%. So you want to see it more than 80 or more than 80% on all those quizzes. Big resource center as well. Lots of information, updates, huge amount of reference material is available in there. Many videos. As you go through the material, it will suggest you go and look at certain videos, etc. There's also, if you haven't got anything to show you those online text, there's an EPUB download you can use. There's the course slides. So if you're attending a course online, perhaps you've got all the course slides there. You've got printable flashcards. There's a quick reference guide, finding a way around the online system, and feedback and help as well. And there are study tools. There's the Apex Dictionary. I would suggest you download that on your phone. And there's the score model. You can also download that app on your phone. We go through the score app a little bit on this, or the score model in this course. There's more test-taking tips here, okay? And there's a lot of exam resources like the exam content manual, which I said you must go through like with a fine-tooth comb. Exam preparation, study guides, and all sorts of more resources down here. Masses of stuff for you. As I mentioned, the exam content manual, very important document. And usually if I'm running the first bit of the class, we'll go through that, spend at least half an hour going through that. And there are the diagnostic areas, the 8 diagnostic areas. And as I mentioned, you have to pass every single one of them, but they all don't have the same weight. The one with the biggest weight is number 4 here, which is manage internal operations and inventory, and sourcing products and managing customer and supplier relationships. Those are the big ones. The others are around about 10 plus minus 10%. But that is the percentage of questions you will get in the exam, okay? So 19% of the questions you're going to get are going to be on managing internal operations and inventory, but only 10% will be on forecasting and managing demand. And you have to have a good knowledge of all those diagnostic areas and pass every single diagnostic area to get the qualification. Okay, and lastly, I mentioned 50% of getting through the exam is understanding the definitions. This is just a small portion of them. In the exam content manual, there are several pages of these. There's about 200 odd definitions that you need to know. So when you start the course, I would say, I usually suggest to people, just take them in order, 5 a day. Go to your Apex Dictionary and understand what they're talking about. I mean, if we've got 200 and you do 5 a day, it's going to take you quite a while to get through them all. But don't leave it to the last minute and try and go through them. Cycle them on a daily basis. Put it in place. I'm going to look at 5 of these or 10 a day and go into your dictionary. Okay, that kind of brings me to the end of my section.
Thank you, Mr. Ken.
Yeah, I'm going to stop sharing now and you can take over.
Sure.
Okay, over to you.
Okay, well, we do a brief introduction about Morgan International. Morgan International basically started back in 1995. We are one of the premium training provider in the region. We have 32 branches all around the world. We have offices in UAE, Beirut, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, Canada, India, and many other locations. What we do, we provide professional certification like CSCP and diplomas. We provide industry-specific workshops. We provide soft skill workshop, in-house training to different clients like Aramco, like Mubadala, like Caterpillar, DHL, many more. And we do tailored trainings. This is the glimpse of our corporate network. As you can see, I don't want to name any of them. I'm sure you can recognize their logos. Many of them are corporate partners, and we are doing in-house training for them, especially for supply chain and logistics. Moving on, before we do more discussion, we just want to share some tips and suggestion from our side. Well, when you're planning for any certification, not specifically CSCP or supply chain certification, we highly recommend to start as early as possible prior to your exam date. For example, if you are planning to take the exam around June, you start your preparation by January or February. Give yourself good time to go through with the material. Make your own study plan, like you plan that every day I will study 1 hour or 2 hour or 3 hour, depending on your study appetite or your capacity. Don't try to rush yourself. Don't uh, believe that, for example, if your exam is on 10th of May and you take 1 month annual vacation or exam vacation and you lock yourself in the room and within 1 month you can learn the entire topic, for example, CSCP, it's not possible. You need to break down the material. You need to study part by part. You need to study in a small chunk. Then you are able to understand and pass the exam. If you believe that you pass within 30 days or within 1 month, well, honestly speaking, that's not possible. I'm with Morgan since 17 years, and I witnessed many candidates who try to do a shortcut. There's no shortcut, first of all, and they try to do a shortcut and they miserably fail. So we highly recommend that you make a regular study plan, review regularly, read the material. I know it's a bit boring to read the huge material when it's like each book is more than 200 pages, but trust me, once you read, you will clear your concepts. You will understand your weak areas and a strong area, which help you to understand the MCQ. Make a good time management. Do practice question. As Mr. Ken mentioned, when you log in the CSCP learning system, you have a pre-test, you have a post-test, you have a specific test for each module, which you can practice. And of course, once you achieve the certificate, reward yourself. Now, you may ask why Morgan International? Well, Morgan International is one of the authorized partner in Middle East and in different regions. We are one of the first few organization who bring CSCP or Apex now we call it ASCM, but few years back we used to call Apex. We bring or introduce those certification in the region. And since we are producing hundreds of candidate every year. Now, about ASCM, it is one of the world leading organization. They have a presence across 100 countries all around the world. They have more than 47,000 active members as of today, and they produce more than 125,000 certified candidates all around the world. They have 60 years of experience, 60 plus years of experience. So you can imagine that how important it is. And just to share with you, many leading organization or companies like Saudi Aramco, SABIC, or global companies like DHL, Aramex, UPS, they all support Epic certification. In fact, they are having like a tie-up with them to do training, Epic's training for their employees. Now, if you are going for the CSCP, technically you have two options. There are two Apex bundle. One is called Apex CSCP bundle, and one is called normal Apex package, learning system package. Well, both have this almost same content and same items. The only difference is if you are going for the Epic CSCP bundle, you will get two Epic CSCP exams, two attempts. For example, if you go for the exam and God forbid, if you fail, you are allowed to do the exam again without any charges, and you will save a lot of money because the Epic CSCP exam fees, it's very high. It's $1,399 if you are a member. If you are not a member, then it's $1,950, which is very expensive. As part of the package, you will receive the printed books, e-books, digital book, online practice question, which is we call it question bank, then practice exam. The total size of the questions are 1200 plus. There's a web-based tool. You can access your learning system through laptop, iPad, any mobile device. There will be exam content manual which explain you about the exam. Plus the material is the most updated version, and if there's any change or updates, by default your Epic CSCP learning system will update the online version, not the printed version. Uh, Plus, there's a resource center, there's a flashcard, digital flashcard, and it's a complete comprehensive learning system. If you have this system, you don't need any other additional tool to pass the CSCP exam. Now, in the last, we just want to share some more tips with you. If you are really planning to go for the CSCP, you need to make sure that you allocate a good time. You need to work hard. It's not an easy certification to achieve. If it's easy, then every other person will be CSCP certified. It is tough, but it is achievable. It is not something impossible or something miracle. We have hundreds of candidates who successfully achieve this certificate, who study with us and pass this exam. Just what you need to do, you need to be more consistent, follow your study plan, uh, stay motivated. I know sometimes candidate they feel that it's hard and it's not achievable. I'm wasting my time and money, and they give up. Uh, you need to invest your time. You need to invest your money, and if you have a good plan and you follow the proper schedule, you attend the classes, you read the entire books, for sure you can pass the exams. Plus, if you are joining Morgan International classes, we make sure that you get the right time. We cover the all 8 modules in appropriate time. It's like a weekly 2 classes every Monday and Wednesday, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. We have our own system. We remind candidate before the exam, we remind candidate before the class, and we make sure that you attend each and every session and you get the best benefit out of the course. Well, this is our presentation. Now we open the floor for Q&A. If you have any question, you can type in the chat or in the section, and Mr. Ken or me will answer your queries. We already have one question, Ken.
Yep.
Mr. Marwan Sheikh, he's asking, I have 30 years old. He means he have 30 years experience, and I have 5 years experience in banking sector as a teller, planning to shift career to supply chain and planning, to have CSCP certificate. But I'm scared that if I will not find a job since I don't have experience in supply chain. And he's working. He's presently in Lebanon. So what do you recommend him?
Yeah, look, I think there's plenty of people out there working in supply chain that got nothing. So if you come along with the certification, I think that'll put you 1 or 2 rungs up the ladder at least. And yeah, I think CSCP is a good place to start, and find yourself a nice little job in supply chain and gain some more experience as you go along. That's about my advice. I think supply chain is one of the best careers to get into. And the advantage is that I don't think you'll ever find anybody who knows everything about supply chain. Once you've done the CSCP, you might say to yourself, well, I'd like to be on the procurement side, purchasing, or I'd like to be on the distribution side, or I really fancy manufacturing. I like manufacturing. I come out of the manufacturing sector. And it is the most difficult part of the supply chain. And again, if we don't
Hello.
chain. But once you've done the CSCP, you'll get to know the whole supply chain, and then you can start saying, well,
Ken, your voice is breaking.
is it? Yeah, I see. Oh, it's coming back now, I think. Okay, yeah, I must have got a bit of a bad internet there. But I was just saying, once you've done the CSCP, it covers the whole supply chain. From there, I think you need to pick, where do I want to focus my attention, in procurement or distribution or shipping or manufacturing? There are just so many aspects of supply chain, but one needs to understand the complete supply chain, and CSCP does that for you. Could you hear that then?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. We have two more questions. One from Mr. Jad. Hello.
Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. How much of a threat is AI to supply chain rules?
Very good, interesting one. I'm involved in some software. Well, both my forecasting software and the demand-driven IntuiFlow software are including AI in them, and I think that's very important. You know, at demand-driven technologies, the boss says we should be running our supply chains like an airline. You know, the airline pilot probably only has his hand on the tiller for 5 or 10% of the flight. The rest of the flight is being run by the computer. We should be using the computers to run our supply chain. And in that software I was talking about, we put in now what we call the autopilot. So it's making a lot more automatic and getting the supply chain people to focus on the major areas or problems that crop up, which will crop up. So AI, very important part of supply chain management, and we're going to see a lot more of it coming in, a lot more, in my opinion.
And see, Mr. Jad, he's asking also how flexible is remote working in the supply chain field?
Okay, well, I'm remote working, and I have been for the last couple of years. With software in the cloud, I was very involved in an implementation of DDMLP software in India at a mattress company. And I never even went there, didn't have to, because the software is in the cloud. I can see what the client sees. We can do education online. We can do training online. Everything can be done online today. So yeah, I work remotely. I've got one or two clients in Cape Town, actually. It's nice.
Ken, you're breaking again.
Hello, I think you've lost me again.
Yeah. Now we can hear you.
You can, okay. Yeah, so remote working, very easy in the supply chain, I think.
Yep. Okay, Mr. Rami is asking about the username and password. Let me answer this. Yes, Mr. Rami, there's a specific username and password to access your CSCP material. You need to contact if you register with Morgan, you need to contact the local office from where you registered. I believe you registered from Beirut or some other cities. Just contact our local office and they will provide you the username and password. We have another gentleman, Abdul Samad. He's asking, I'm not in operation, but into demand planning and market level. Do you think this certification is essential for the position I'm in now?
I would say absolutely. I would say anybody working in the supply chain doesn't only need to understand the little function that they're in at the moment, like demand planning, as you said. You need to understand, how does that fit into the bigger supply chain? You know, where do I fit into this supply chain, and what can I do in my function to make sure that the supply chain is working well within my area? And as I mentioned earlier, I think in a lot of cases, people don't understand the supply chain or their company's supply chain strategy, and they're actually doing things in their function which are going against that strategy. We need to understand this strategy, and we need to support the strategy, and I think that's very important. So yeah, no, go for it, I would say.
Okay, we have Mr. Jad again with his third question. It's okay, Mr.
Yeah.
Jad, you can ask as much as you want. He's saying he's worked as a sales and account manager for a big shipping company and want to switch to supply chain. Is my previous experience worth anything in the field?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you've already been in the supply chain. If you've been working with a shipping company, that's a major part of the supply chain, isn't it? Shipping product around the world. So, yeah, your experience would be useful in that area. Apex has another certification, CLTD, which is Certified in Logistics, Transportation, and Distribution. And that you might think about doing that after your CSCP. But I reckon the CSCP should be done first, so you get a good understanding of the complete supply chain, and then you can hone in and focus in a particular area. Yeah.
Okay, we have another question. I'm 27 with 3 years in purchasing and procurement, plus 2 years in shipping and logistic, and this certification seems a lot interviewing. How much you believe this will be an added my value to my portfolio?
Portfolio. Again, procurement and purchasing is a portion, a very important part of the supply chain. And, you know, as I said, we need to be dealing with the best to be the best company. So I think it's important that no matter where you're working in the supply chain, if you begin to understand the complete supply chain and where you fit in and what you can do to help your company support their supply chain strategy. So yeah, absolutely. I would say it would add value to your portfolio, no doubt.
And same candidate asking, will all session be online? Yes, we are offering the
Yeah.
classes on Zoom online, and you can attend from any part of the world. We have another candidate. They are asking, is it possible to find online job in the area?
That that I wouldn't know. I don't know actually, because I haven't looked for a job for the last 30 or 40 years, I think. So I guess it might be possible, but I can't really comment on that one.
Okay, we have Mohammed Tilawi. Thanks for your time and for the helpful webinar. What are the best ways to convince my boss to invest and apply for my employee, knowing that our team manage more than 50 POS across 4 countries, and there are any special bundles or companies? Well,
Okay,
he's
well, I
asking your
guess
suggestion how to convince his boss.
yeah, that's often the difficult one, is persuading the boss that you need to actually help the company out by getting certified. I mean, if your boss isn't interesting, I would say go and find a new boss, go and find a new company. Um, really, yeah, it's a difficult one. All you can do is give
Well, you
them
can
the
introduce your
information.
boss. You can introduce your boss to Morgan team members, and we will
Yeah,
convince him.
yeah, okay, yeah, good answer. Well done. Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
and of course we have corporate rates and corporate packages for different companies,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you can contact us, and inshallah we will help you on that. Okay, we have Mohammed Yusuf. He's asking, I have 12 years experience in warehouse. What certificate should I have? CSCP or CLTD?
As I said before, I think the first thing to do is CSCP, so you can look across the supply chain and how the whole supply chain works. And if you're working in warehousing, how does warehousing fit into the supply chain? What's important for me to do to make sure that the supply chain is working properly? And then, yeah, maybe go and do the CLTD or any other warehousing qualifications that you might be able to find. But I think the CSCB just gives you that lick across the supply chain, so you're going to understand how the whole thing fits together and how it works. Okay.
Great. Uh, Guys, any other question? Anything you want to share? Any query? Anything which is not clear?
Yeah, all I can say is that those people that do the work and put in at least 1 or 2 hours over and above every hour you do in class. They reckon probably about 100 hours, invest about 100 hours, including the class hours. Do all the quizzes, do all the work, and you'll get through. It's not that difficult really when you think about it. Most of it's pretty intuitive, I think. But a lot of people, well, not a lot, but a few people have phoned me and said, I failed the exam. What should I do? And the instructor has the ability to go in and have a look at what you've actually done. And I've gone back and said, well, you haven't done the work. You didn't do these quizzes. You didn't do the practice exam. You never studied this. So we can see exactly what you've done. And those people that have failed, they really just haven't done the work. So if you do the work, you'll get through.
Great. Guys, one last time, do you have any other question? Anything you want to ask or share or discuss? The floor is open. Let us know before we end the session. I don't think there's any other question. So thank you, everyone. Thanks for attending today's session. Thank you, Ken, for very
Pleasure.
insightful information. Just the closing remarks. Morgan International is always there. You can visit our website or our social media pages. I think we have one question. Let's see, it's a
No,
question or
just said
remark.
thank you.
Oh, thank you. Okay, great. So
you.
thank you very much. Thank you for attending the webinar, and you can contact us any part of the world you are. Just give us a buzz. We have a live chat. We have WhatsApp messages on our website. You can contact us, and we will help you and provide you the best possible solution. So good evening and goodbye, and we'll see you next time, inshallah. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, and good luck.
Good luck. Thank you. Elsa, it's depend on your region. I recommend you to contact our local office based on your city, but I can give you the generic price if you are getting applying for the Zoom classes as a bundle package. It will be 3,500 US dollar plus taxes, depend on the taxes which city or country you are. The generic price is $3,500 for the bundle package, which include the Zoom course, Epic CSCP original material, and 2 exams. But for more details, you can contact our local office based on your city. Okay, Ken. Thank you, and we'll
Okay,
see you
thank
around.
you.
Thank you.
Talk to you
Bye.
again. Bye then.